Hello, and welcome back to the next episode of this Healthy Life podcast. I'm very excited for my guest today. I have Jamie Maitland, and she is a holistic nutritionist, integrative nutrition health coach, and founder of The Office Health, and she specializes in gut health and integrating wellness into our daily lives. So excited to have you on here. I think it's perfect timing as we're coming into the new year and sharing healthy tips and tricks that can really help people kind of, even if they start to make like one or two healthy habits in the new year, just ways so that we can really kind of implement that and hold on to those new shifts. So welcome, Jamie. Very excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So I'd love for you to start with a brief intro, sharing a little bit about yourself, some of your background, and what kind of got you into the health space.
Sure. Well, I'm Jamie Maitland. I'm a local, born and raised in East Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And truth be told, I did start out bartending, like I told you, and that kind of sparked an interest, silly as it may sound, in people and connecting with people. Mm-hmm. Long story short, I was always into fitness, working out, things like that. And I was always a creative at heart. So I had this crazy idea to open a indoor cycling studio with my cousin in Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. And we founded and opened the first spin studio in Fort Lauderdale. Even longer story short, I ended up selling that in 2017 and the wheels just kept turning. And I was like, well, that was fun. Let's do it again. And how can we make it different and better? So I opened a different boutique fitness studio with only 12 spots, a lot more small. And I teach group fitness classes. And then, that was kind of going well and still is to this day. And it just kind of snowballed into the wellness side of things because I had a lot of clients that were, like, Jamie, the workouts are great, but like, what am I supposed to be eating? Like the hour they were with me was great, but it's like, what are they doing the other 23 hours? So exactly. Then at the time, and this is like 2019-ish, I was kind of on my own, like, I don't want to say health journey, but like I was always like healthy-ish, right? Mm-hmm. But not to the level that I'm now. And I mean that more of like in a cerebral way. Like I actually use my brain and make like conscious choices versus like just mindlessly following whatever the trend was that year. Mm-hmm. So it kind of led me down a path to really start deciding what made sense to my brain. And then how do I recycle that to one, not just like telling somebody what to do, but how do they make their own decisions with what I'm saying and like make it their own, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how my path went. And my gym is called The Office 954. And then my health and wellness company is called The Office Health. And on top of that, I have a program that I created called the 21-Day Reset. So that's kind of like what blends the two worlds, if you will. And that started in about 2020.
Awesome.
And it's just been going ever since.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point, right? Like it's so easy to constantly be like online or Instagram and like every health influencer is telling you like, do this, do that. And it's so contradictory and you can just be overwhelmed and like mindlessly kind of doing these wellness trends when A, it may not even be the right fit for your body. B, it may not even be good for you because I know before I kind of really dove deep into health and wellness, I thought I was being healthy, but I was like far from. Now that I have all this knowledge and now that I'm like more educated and making better choices and actually listening to my body, it makes such a difference. So I think that's just such an important thing to reinforce in people.
I agree. It's there's just a major like unlearning process that I feel like not a lot of people talk about. And, how do we use our most sophisticated computer on the planet, which is between our ears? And how do I teach people to use that as a nutrition coach and as a gut health specialist? And, it's kind of like I give those annoying pageant answers like, well, it's, listen to your body and everybody's different, but it's like they're looking for that answer. And I'm like, you don't get it. Like life is a DIY and you can hear me and I'll help with some things, but if you're not taking into consideration what I'm saying and putting it into action and plugging it in your own way that makes sense to your style of life, it's just never going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a great point to kind of dive into. One of the first questions I had also was like, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have, say, about like holistic health or going on their own health journey? Like you said, like they want the answer given to them, or they probably want it wrapped up in like a little pill or vitamin that they can just take
want
and that
the pill,
will fix
they want
everything,
it easy. Right? You just answer the question. Like that's really the biggest misconception is that there isn't any work to it, but it's all about perspective. And that's why like just doing what I do for a living. And I guess like my style and approach to it is level one for me, which I teach people, is to use their brain. And everybody's mind is different, right? We all have like little psychosomatic things. But just to answer your question, like one of the biggest misconceptions is like they don't have to use their brain. And that is a giant misconception, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need to use
Absolutely.
your brain. So that's number one. And number two, I feel like a lot of people kind of want like the copy paste. Well, her body looks amazing. His body looks great. Let me do that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I get that. I would be lying to you if I were to say like, I don't see how do we get these results?
Mm-hmm.
But, again, it's just where do you live? What's your home life like? Does that guy have 3 kids? Does that girl have 3 kids? Like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of factors. And, another thing that I teach is health and wellness is so much more than just fitness and food. It's very mental. It's very environmental. It can be financial. Like if you have, bill paying problems, that can be stressful. Your
Yeah.
vagus nerve and your cortisol levels can go up.
Mm-hmm.
So just again, to circle back, a big misconception is that it's just fitness and food. That's another thing
Yep.
I would say.
Yep. I totally agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Because
And
people just get so fixated on like eating healthy or going to the gym and like, is their
that's
sleep good? Like, are they
what
managing
about all the other
stress? Right?
things?
Yeah, exactly. It's like those things are all affecting our body so much, maybe
No,
even more than the food we're eating and the workouts we're doing, right?
a
And people really miss
thousand
that.
percent, 1,000%.
So let's talk about things a little bit. So, you
Yeah.
talked about, do you have financial issues or like being healthy can be expensive, right? So like people get overwhelmed with like having to buy like grass-fed meats or, all these kind of like ideal things that you're supposed to be doing for your health. So what are some ways that, it can come to being a more conscious consumer and, spending your money correctly, but not overspending on health trends that you don't necessarily are going to get any gain out of?
Well, I'm going to give you an annoying answer again. You got to do your research. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
You got to like, it's about to be 2025. Like go on your computer
I know.
and Google things like,
ChatGPT can even help at this point, right?
listen, use all the tools. Like we are in an age where like everything is so accessible and we really don't have an excuse. Like don't be a lazy thinker. So number one, but listen, again, when you Google things, like try and find a local farmer's market, try and find, like type in BOGO around me. Like you never know what will pop up. You know what I mean? So I would say like be super resourceful. Like if you really are, trying to save your dollars here. And also, you have to really kind of consider where your financial disconnect is. Maybe you're buying a bunch of dumb things that you don't need to buy, and where are your priorities at. Again, not to give an annoying answer, but it's just the reality. Like I'm a kind of tell you how it is kind of girl. And I think people need to just like put their big girl big boy pants on and really like let's stop, let's think and
Mm-hmm.
see where we can either cut costs on certain things. But my answer to that is really just utilize the power of the internet and try and find sales when you can. And you might, again, just be buying dumb things you don't need.
Yeah, absolutely. We
So
definitely are all
cut the
guilty of
fat
that,
out.
right?
Yeah,
Definitely all
I
guilty
mean,
of that.
guilty. I get it. Like the hypnotic rhythm of life is a real thing and it
Hmm.
doesn't stop.
Absolutely.
You got to be a
And
mental ninja.
and so as we come into the new year, there's lots of talk about what ingredients are good for you and what's not. Like, should you be eating seed oils? Should you not be eating seed oils? Should you be eating eggs, not eggs? Like, it's like every day there's like conflicting information. So
It's so confusing. It's
it's,
tough.
yeah. And
Like,
like you said, you have to do your own research into all of these things, right? But it's confusing when the research is kind of like all over the place. So you kind of as like someone that works with people,
yeah.
optimizing health and things like that, what are some ingredients that you think people should be ditching as they come into the new year?
Okay. I mean, without like going down a whole rabbit hole here, because
It's
this
like a whole other
topic
podcast,
excites
right?
me.
Yeah.
Like back to the misconception question, but an ingredient to ditch, natural flavors. That
Hmm.
is like a hard no for me. And
Yeah.
I just want to like, just to be clear, define it for your listeners because
Yeah.
I
Let's
think
dive in.
they hear what it is and they just don't really know.
It sounds so
So
natural, right?
it sounds so natural and organic. It is not. So natural flavorings by definition, all that means is it has to be derived from a plant or an animal. After that, these companies, they hire flavorists, and these flavorists, it's their job. They get paid to make whatever that is taste like a raspberry, let's just say. Once they check the boxes of it being derived from a plant or an animal, they can put whatever other synthetic chemicals they want into that product. And that's like a fact, like ChatGPT me,
Hmm.
Google me.
Hmm.
And it's unfortunate because over time, like, you've heard of low grade inflammation, right? Or inflammation. That's such a buzzword, I feel.
Hmm.
But over time, that low grade inflammation can lead to chronic stressors or chronic inflammation or autoimmune diseases. Not all the time, but most of the time. And it's in drinks like Celsius, which is super popular these days.
Yep.
And, on top of that, there's like sucralose and all these artificial flavors and artificial sweeteners, I should say, that people just don't really realize that are in there. And again, I'm going to keep saying it throughout the whole podcast. Just you have to stop, think, and really do your research. At the end of the day, these companies want your money, and I don't mind giving my money as a medium of exchange, right? But I want to give it to the companies that are doing the right thing and that are putting the right ingredients in their products. So to ditch, definitely sucralose, anything with natural flavors. And I just kind of want to like keep it simple at that. But back to your oil just topic, it is a little confusing because some people will say like hard no to seed oils, but like I'll use perilla oil, right? Perilla comes from a leaf. But again, I don't want that to be like an overwhelming topic for people. So just to like, you heard the phrase KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Just keep it simple. Use coconut oil, perilla oil. If you need a neutral flavor oil, olive oil, just stick with those three.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Keep it simple and clean, right?
Keep it simple.
Yeah. And those are accessible. They're everywhere. They're easy to get.
They're everywhere, and they're not exotic, and they're not $1 million. And it's, how much oil do you need? We don't need all the options.
We're not drinking it.
You got 3. That's all I need.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then, so you also do some work with like helping people kind of give their kitchen a makeover and, kind of do a kitchen clean out and ditch the things that they really shouldn't be eating and try to make some healthy swaps. So what's kind of your approach to doing a healthy kitchen makeover, and how can someone kind of lead their own at home if they want to do that?
Oh, that's my favorite. So I offer, it's called a fridge and pantry raid that I do. And I pretty much come to your house and I raid your fridge. We go to Whole Foods. I come back, I help you meal prep, and we basically like completely just give your kitchen a makeover. So some of the first things first, I'm very hands-on. So I'll go there and I don't throw out anything they don't want me to, but I bring it to their attention. So if I go to your house, for example, we will take as much as you want out of your kitchen and out of your pantry, and we'll go through everything one by one. Like, is this good for us? Is this inflammatory? What's in this? Do we use this? And that's like a whole situation in itself. I can't tell you how many things I've thrown out that are like 3 years old. I'm like, did you know you had 19 of these like spice packets? She's
my goodness. No. And they're like,
because listen, the reality is a lot of these, it's crazy. And the reality is a lot of these, are like family homes, and it's not just the mom that's eating them. It's like, oh, well, I got to cook for my kids and my husband. But so we start out, I take everything out of their fridge, everything out of their pantry. We kind of go through everything of what we're keeping, what we're not. We'll go through, I go even as detailed as like, what cleaning products are you using? Are we using bleach? Are we using, soft and scrub or anything toxic? I don't tell them what to do. I just explain what is good about it, what is bad about it, and they can make an executive decision. And again, I give like a detailed explanation as to why, which is a big part of, again, my coaching style. I don't just mindlessly tell people to do this, do that, because I said so. A mind that doesn't ask questions is a mind that's easily manipulated. And I encourage all my clients to question me, because I don't know everything. I only know what I know until I don't know, right? But another thing too is, their cooking equipment. Like a lot of times I can't tell you how many houses I've been to that are full of plastic containers. And that's such like a hot topic right now, just like microplastics and phthalates and endocrine disruptors, and without overwhelming you guys. It's a real thing. And just getting back to health and wellness as a whole, and not just fitness and food. Our bodies are so sophisticated, and endocrine disruptors, I feel, is such a big topic that I don't know if a lot of people are really talking about. I think it's there, but not to the point where it's like a thing. And endocrine disruptors, unfortunately can mimic your hormones. They can cause inflammation. They can cause you to not lose weight because they mimic your hormones, and they can be found in something as dumb as your perfume that you wear, your candles you use, things like that. So again, without overwhelming the client, I start with the pantry, and then we go to the cleaning products, some kitchen equipment, stainless steel I use, or cast iron. I get rid of all their, nonstick pans. A lot of people just don't know.
Yeah, and they have them forever, and there's so many scrapes and scratches in it. And it's like every time you're cooking in that, you're
all the plastic cutting boards.
Yeah,
out you go.
Those too.
Yeah,
it's
and
crazy
again,
how
it's
much plastic we're eating, right? And like how many toxins we're eating. Just no matter how hard you try, and you buy all this healthy food, spend all the money on like the good stuff, and all of a sudden you're cooking it in something that's just making you sick. If not causing more issues and
it's tough. It's like I'm a big fan of the Four Agreements. I don't know if you've heard of that book, but number one, do your best. Like we're doing our best. And like,
Yeah.
again, that's just another coaching just tip that I give. Just, you got to chill out. Like, I'm not trying to overwhelm your brain. Even if you make those baby steps of like, let's just start with your pantry. Like if this is system overload, like relax, take a breath. This is where you start. This is your starting point. You don't need to compare yourself to anybody else. And if this is you doing your best right now to like ditch, your plastic containers, then we'll start there. Yeah. But
Yeah,
it's crazy
absolutely.
because I'm so in it and I'm sure you are. So it's
Yep.
like almost
It's easy. So
normal.
it's normal for us. Yeah. It's like not overwhelming
Yeah.
and you're just like always kind of thinking about it and doing it. But it's definitely overwhelming when you start and you kind of go through almost like a mourning process of like your old life or like the ease of your old life or not having to worry about these things and all of a sudden having to be like so conscious and aware of it. It can be really overwhelming at first until you kind of find your grounding again and kind of get into the process of your new ways, if you will.
1,000%. And that's why, like, just I teach people to create their reality because it's the paintbrush is in your hand. And I think people need to be reminded of that. Life is a DIY, and what makes sense for me might not make sense for you. Everybody has a different style of life. Everybody wakes up differently. Your routine in the morning might be brush your teeth first. I don't do that first. I do something else first. So it's like the little dumb things that once you kind of like start to realize how detailed things are, then you can start to pinpoint where disconnects are and where you can handle making a change. And that's how you really start to shift your own paradigm, if you will, and create the life that you want to live. And you actually start living consciously and pay attention and say no thank you to some things.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
And unlearn.
Right? Delete what
Yes.
you've already been programmed to
Learn and
mindlessly
unlearn.
do.
Exactly.
So when you're working on with someone saying like doing like a kitchen makeover or pantry makeover, what are some of like your favorite, like say your top 3 kind of healthy swaps for someone when you're working with them that you feel like make the biggest impact or change in their life and their health?
Like I mentioned, I mean, it might sound cliche, but definitely you again would be surprised how many people still have plastic containers. And again, the plastic containers contain phthalates. They're full of BPA, which are basically, in a nutshell, like synthetic plastic toxic chemicals.
And then you heat your food up in it or put it in the
Yeah,
fridge
and
in the freezer and like all the
you
temperature
don't think
changes with
about
your
it, but
food.
it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, so definitely that. We order immediately on Amazon all the glass. And same thing with the pans. Again, I know it kind of sounds redundant, but again, these they just don't know.
Yeah,
So I get rid of
agree.
all their nonstick pans. They were bamboozled on, a QVC commercial. We get rid of that. Either stainless steel or cast iron is good. And then again, without overwhelming them, and I feel them out. I don't like bombard them if they're not ready for it, but I do tend to go to the cleaning products after that and then just kind of baby step them through it. I like the brand Branch Basics a lot. There's a ton of like homemade ones you can make. And, if you're one of those like psycho cleaners and you're like, Jamie, it just doesn't clean as good as Softy Scrub, do your best. I'm not going to use it, but do your best.
Totally.
So,
And I love that when you're doing kind of these like kitchen makeovers, like you're not even touching the food yet. You're kind of just touching these like foundational things that you're using every day of your life that are making such an impact. Even like regardless of what food you're eating, these are making a
mhm.
bigger impact on your health. So I think it's really important to not just be like, oh, I switched your pasta for a gluten-free pasta, or like
No.
your canola oil for olive oil. Like these, I think, have more of an impact and are more foundational in kind of your everyday life and overall health, like long term. So
Yeah, and it just kind of starts to weave that thread of like, oh, there's more than just the fitness and the food.
yeah,
But if
yeah.
you're like just specifically for food, a couple swaps, I do see a lot of sunflower oil in pantries. That's a no for me. It's inflammatory, omega-6s. I wouldn't recommend anything with sunflower oil. So those like we'll swap out for. So a lot of people ask me about a neutral oil, right? They'll be like, oh, well, I like to bake, like I like vegetable oil. Perilla oil. Whoever's listening, Perilla oil. Because even for me, if I make like homemade mayonnaise, I don't like olive oil. I don't like avocado oil. Perilla oil is like the best neutral oil. And just a
Okay.
little fun
I
fact.
actually even haven't heard of it, so I'm gonna have to check this out.
Oh,
I'm learning
okay.
something
So
myself. I usually
yeah,
use like a neutral olive oil, but yeah.
Perilla oil will change your life. You can
Okay.
get on Amazon, and you've been to a sushi restaurant, right?
Yeah, of
You
course.
know when they serve sashimi on like that pretty green big leaf?
Mm-hmm.
That's a
That's
Perilla
the
leaf.
leaf. Okay.
That's
All
the
right,
leaf.
cool.
Yeah. And it's neutral and it's good for you. And if you need something no flavor, that's your oil.
All
So
right.
that's one that I would swap out. Another thing too, again, without going down a rabbit hole. I take things a little more than just gluten-free. I try and take my clients lectin-free. But again, not everybody is super sensitive to them. I just bring it to their attention. I don't do any oats. I try and swap out oats for tiger nuts. I have an awesome granola that I came out with that's amazing. A lot of people have like mindless snacks in their pantry that I try and we can have a couple, but if you know yourself and you're like, Jamie, I love like crunchies, I like to just snack. Maybe we don't have 10 snacks in your pantry. Maybe we have like 2 or 3, and then we start to eat and then minimize the snacking versus like we snack and only eat 1 meal a day. I'm definitely about eating. Snacking is sometimes habitual and we don't even realize that we are doing it, and we're not hungry. We're just like,
do I get to do something?
Yes. Correct.
Yeah. My husband is a total snacker in our house, and he just like has like snack attack, and it's like the kitchen is like always have like snacks popping up, and like I'm like I can retrace his steps with his snacking. I'm like I'm more of like a 3 meals a day, maybe like a snack if I'm going to go like a long time in between meals, but like it's usually like something high in protein just to kind of refuel me and keep me going. Yeah. So yeah. It's like, the snacking thing is a real thing.
Trust me. That's why like I've just kind of developed my coaching style, if you will, because it's all so psychosomatic. Like I need to start recording my fridge and pantry reads a little more because they're just so funny, the things that people say to me. Like again, with the crunchies, the lady's like, oh, but like I need a crunchy in my salad. And like she'll say it just like that. I'm like, okay, I got you. Like granola is on top. So it's like those dumb little things, if I can help people swap them out, that's what I do. Like even something as silly as like seaweed chips, like crunch them up, put them on top of something. I don't know. Like nothing needs to make sense to anybody but you.
Yeah, exactly. As
like
long as it tastes good, you can eat it, right?
Yeah, you should see me eat sometimes. I'll eat the weirdest things like avocado, caviar, and like tuna with onions, and I don't even know, like seaweed chips. And my boyfriend will look at me and is like, "What?"
He's like, "What are you eating?"
He cannot. I don't know. But it makes sense to me.
You got to eat what you like are craving or what like sounds good to you, and your body too, right?
Again, nothing needs to make sense to anybody but you.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about kind of like the first steps, like doing these healthy swaps and doing a kitchen clean out. So when you're working with someone, how do you kind of establish these things to be more of like a long-term goal? Like I feel like everyone starts really gung-ho like the first few weeks, and they're like, yeah, I'm making these changes, and then all of a sudden it's like snacks are back, or like, the habits start creeping back in. So how do you work with people to kind of establish these shifts and changes long-term?
Well, Erica, it comes to like the come here second. Like, are we wanting to be adults here? Or are we trying to like run forward and then walk backwards? Because at a certain point, not to demean anybody, but it's unintelligent to walk backwards when you know how to run forward, right? It's like we have this information, but where is your disconnect of like plugging it into action, right? Like you have the desire, which is the starting point of all achievement. So how do we get you to plug it in and do it on a consistent basis? And that just takes a deeper conversation with the client without, again, going too much detail. But it does take that conversation. It's not like, here, eat this, eat that. Like they need to be able to connect with it and have it be like chewable for them. So to break it down even further, like for example, I'll have a client and she's like, hey, listen, like I'm a realtor. I'm always on the go. Like I need to have, and like she's super structured. So her brain is like type A. She needs a fucking plan, right? So we'll take Betty Lou and we'll literally write her out an itinerary, right? Like think about if you went on a cruise, they have the itinerary. Everything's organized. It's nice. So, it's like kinesthetic learner, visual learner. I got to find out what kind of learner you are. So then we can establish a style of life that will work for your brain. So somebody like Betty Lou, for argument's sake, she's type A. So we need to write it out for her. So we'll write out her Monday, let's just say Monday through Wednesday. We don't even get to Friday. Let's just get through Monday through Wednesday. And we'll write out her things, write out her options, and we'll stick it on her fridge. And she doesn't really have an excuse. It's just a matter of if she feels like doing it or not. And at a certain point, I can only do so much. And again, my style of coaching is very like tough love. But I'm a realist, and it takes work and it takes effort and it takes energy, but it's all about your perspective about it. Like it's only work if you think it's work.
Yeah. Right? Or if they're ready to put in the work to do it and actually make those changes. Otherwise, what's the point of hiring you?
I don't know what to tell you. You go show houses all day. Like that's work.
Yeah.
But you can't pack your lunch to eat better and, get feeling better, because that's what you said you wanted. And I'm trying to show you how to get there, but you have to be willing to bridge the gap. So I'll break it down that deep with a client. And if they need to confide in me and like, Jamie, I'm going to need a text every 2 minutes, like I'll do that for you. Cause again, everybody's just, they learn differently. It's like teaching. It really is. And, it's a very, serious subject for people. They have issues with it. Like I've seen all the food issues, and I've seen some people that food's not their issue. Moving is their issue. Like it just, we all have our
Mm-hmm.
quirks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's always one thing that we have like resistance to that
Yeah.
we're like, oh,
Yep. And listen,
okay.
that's why like too, there's trainers out there. Like
Yeah.
I'd pay somebody, put money to it. That'll make you do
Mm-hmm.
it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you're paying $150, you better do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's
Yeah,
just like
I always found
example.
that. I mean, I love working out too, but like I always found like if I had like an appointment or a trainer, or like had like Soul Cycle booked or had like personal training appointment, like I would show up like 5 minutes early. It was like the days that I
Yep.
didn't, that I was like, oh, I'll work out after lunch. Oh, I'll work out in an hour. Before you know it, it's like 6 p.m. and you're like, I'm tired. It's
I
like
know
you
it's,
missed it. So having like that structure and scheduling it in, I think can be really important
mhm.
for people that need that.
Totally. I mean, the inner narrative that we all have is a real thing. I can get convince myself of not doing that workout. Just
Exactly.
that. So it's really just, I don't want to even say it doesn't have to be a constant battle. It's just you need to remember that you're in charge. And again, that's just like a big thing that I teach my clients. Like you need to use your brain, and you are the captain. You're the driver of the bus, and the bus is your brain. It's just a matter of if you feel like driving, or if you want to go on autopilot, society will drive that for you. And I can guarantee they don't have your best interest in mind,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also I
you
think
know?
like it's important to kind of seek help or seek support in the areas that are like hardest for you. So like maybe eating's easy, but like you said, like
Mhm.
working out's not. So like how do you kind of like get
Yeah.
extra
And
support in that department to make sure you're kind of filling that up and actually completing that part of your health journey and kind of,
And
desire
that's
stuff.
again just comes down to like that conversation with the client. Like you need to tell me where your disconnect is, like where you have trouble, and let's see if we can come up with a plan to solve it. Almost like you do with business, right? Like you set up your podcast, like we got to get ready, we got to be on time. It's the same thing. It's just you're plugging it into a different platform, and that's all it is. And it's almost like if I had to, it's like I break it down Barney style. I don't, because it's
Yeah.
not complicated stuff. It's
Yeah.
just you haven't taken the time and the energy to think about it in a very simple way, because it's not complicated things. It can be simple. You just have to change your perspective about it and your
Mm-hmm.
attitude about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like once you kind of like get past the overwhelm and start doing it, you realize like, oh, this is not that much harder. It doesn't take that much more
No,
time. Like, and you
no,
start feeling better, which I think also kind of starts to motivate you, right? Like you're like,
thousand
I have
percent.
more energy. I'm sleeping better. Like I don't feel bloated after like I eat food on the go. So you start to realize like the value of it. And I think that once you kind of get over that initial first like month or two of just
Yeah,
making the adjustments, then it becomes easier. And then at a certain point, you're like, well, this is like not even a choice anymore. It's just my life. It's just my lifestyle. And doing the
exactly.
opposite actually like makes you feel bad. You're like, I don't even want to do it anymore, you know?
I know. And then it's like you feel the side effects. It's like, damn,
Yeah.
I used to eat 3 cookies. I don't
Yeah,
feel good after I
right.
eat 3 cookies now. Like when I do my resets with my clients, and just kind of circling back to like, how to keep clients on track after doing something. So my reset is 21 days, and it's 21 days of no dairy, no lectins, no sugar, no alcohol. Got to get your workouts in, a gallon of water every day. And again, one of the biggest questions, like, Jamie, like, what do I do when the reset's over? I'm like, what do you mean? What do you do? You've been doing it for 21 days. And listen, I'm realistic. I'll say to them, if you want to have an adult beverage, have the adult beverage. We don't need 10 of them. I like an espresso martini once in a while, but just getting back to your first, like, consciously consume. You don't have to mindlessly like, oh, the reset's done. Like the reset is not, it's not a challenge. It's not a 21 day. The reset is designed to shift your paradigm. It's like an environment where like, this is where we make the change. And then it's your adult decision if you want to go backwards or forwards. And you can like balance it's not something you find, it's something you create. And I can't stress that enough. Like for people, like you need to just create what you want. So when people, get off the reset, it doesn't need to be like, oh, we're off the cliff now.
Yeah. It
It's
doesn't need
just
to
a
be a
matter
bottle
of,
of wine a night, right? Like it's like
yeah, like it's basically like teaching you how to, you got to survive in the wild now. You know what I mean? A good trainer and a good coach, in my opinion, isn't somebody that cripples you to need them. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm flattered people, take to me and they hear me, but I don't want them to need me. They shouldn't need me.
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
trying to rehabilitate you
You're
to fly.
giving them the tools that they can
Trying to
thrive
give
in
you your
like their own
wings.
life, right?
Yeah,
You're like
because
a preserve. You're setting them free into the wild.
exactly. Exactly. So, again, just to kind of recap all that, the work is what you want it to be, and it's not hard to stick to something. You just have to have the right plan in place, and it might not be a copy paste of somebody else's, and I think people need to really understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you do the 21-day reset, is that something that you do with clients that you've already kind of worked with and established some of these changes, or can anyone just kind of jump in and work with you on the 21-day reset just to kind of jumpstart
Anybody
this?
can.
Okay.
Anybody can. So I've been hosting these resets for almost like 6 years now, and it's been awesome. And just seeing like the lives and like the brain shifts like before my eyes is all I could ask for as a coach. And it's just so cool. And besides like, the physical parts of like the changes, it's just like the mentalness of like, Jamie, like you don't like, you have to kind of experience it. It's one of those things like I could talk about it, but it's something you just have to experience. I only host them 4 times a year. I do offer private ones, but the groups are just different. I only take like 30, 40 people at a time. I'm very hands-on. I like literally give everybody my phone number because I'm a hands-on person. Like I need to talk to you. I don't send, like empty emails, like where like, I don't do that. Again, it's a lot more detailed than I'm giving you the cliff notes, but it's cool and it works. And I've been doing them, like I said, almost 6 years now. And just it's awesome. So
That's
if you ever
amazing.
want to do one,
Yeah, sounds great. I'm
yeah,
always down for a
they're
read.
cool.
It's
The next one's
always
Monday,
good.
January 27th.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was gonna say, do you do them kind of like seasonally or
I
like?
do them seasonally, and I try and like pick and choose like the right times to do them, right? Like, okay, I'm not doing it the first week after New Year's.
Yeah,
Everybody
no
like needs a
one's
second.
exactly.
Yeah, so I'll do it the third week of January.
Hmm.
And I also have a cookbook that I wrote that is a 21-day reset cookbook, which it briefly like explains what the reset is, and then there's like 125 recipes that are no dairy, no gluten, no lectins, no sugar, and all that, which makes life easier. Um, and again, there's just really no excuse. It's a matter of if you feel like changing or if you feel like being comfy cozy over here.
A little bit of both, right?
You can find new comfy cozy is the point. Like it
No, I know, I'm
doesn't like
teasing.
it's like how you grow, right? Like,
Yeah,
okay, well we were 12 at one point and now we're this age. Like change
absolutely.
is inevitable. It's part of life and you gotta just learn to surf
Absolutely.
and
And
flow with
then
life.
I
Mm.
totally agree. Yeah. Cause it's like no matter what you do, like things are going to be coming at you. So you have
Shit's
to be
gonna
able to
happen.
like be resilient and take those things on and take care of yourself. Right.
Yeah, and
Um,
life throws you curveballs as you've experienced. I mean,
mhm,
I hear your whole story, but I read a little bit, and
mhm.
kudos to you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, but I feel like I'm a lot healthier and better off now than I was before. So
Good.
there's that, right?
Yeah.
Definitely know a lot more about health. Never
Yeah.
thought I'd be in
Yeah.
this
Well,
space.
hey,
Here I
it
am 12
never
years
ends.
later. I know it doesn't. It really doesn't. And then
Mm.
speaking of health and wellness, what's one kind of big myth you hear out there in the health and wellness world that you wish people would just stop believing in and stop kind of perpetuating?
Oh, that's such a tough
There's so
question.
many, I know.
Oh my Lord, that's so tough because it's like I feel like like the Ozempic thing and all that is like such a buzz topic right now, and as a holistic nutritionist, like, and also like being a cognitive health coach, like I'm not fully opposed to it because if that's what works for that person, like so be it. I think I'm going to say it again, like the biggest myth is like copy pasting from somebody else. Like that's not a thing. I feel like that's like a big myth that people I think buy into with a lot of these health coaches, like, oh well, she has a six pack and there she's eating just this, and like it's so much more than that. And I think again, just like a big myth is copy pasting. And I would say that like health and wellness is just fitness and food, which I think a lot of health and wellness companies and coaches, not hating, just identifying that focus on. And they're doing, I guess, their best. And it's how they coach. I'd like to see coaches start to kind of dive into a little more and coach the entire thing. Like, how do you coach somebody to you know, see the lifestyle, right? Because we always hear like,
Mhm.
oh, well, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
But what does that mean?
And how do you get there?
And how do you get there? So that's what I do on the reset.
Yeah.
I break it down and I break it down individually with each
Hmm.
person because
Hmm.
everybody isn't Erica's brain, not
Yeah.
everybody's Jamie's brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So biggest misconception is copy pasting and thinking that being healthy is just fitness and food.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And then if you have one tip that you can share that you think will make a difference in people's lives in the new year, something simple that they can kind of integrate into their daily life without having to do a whole reset and
Yeah.
kitchen, everything. But
I would
as we get
encourage
started.
them. I would encourage them to go down a rabbit hole if they feel like it
Mm-hmm.
about lectins. Dr. Stephen Gundry is a huge
Mm-hmm.
mentor of mine, and he really got me down a rabbit hole one night. And this was when I was going through, like, I read the China study, I went vegan, I did keto, I did all the things, I did all the
Mm-hmm.
copy pasting. And I remember hearing him, and I read his book, The Plant Paradox, and it was like the one thing that just like made sense to me. And I'm not saying, not everybody should be like, or I'm not saying everybody should be gluten, lectin free. I just think that people should educate themselves a little more about the plant kingdom. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
carnivore. I don't label myself anything. I'm a qualitarian, if anything. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm the type of person that just will always say and forever say, use your brain and do what works best for you. But I think one thing I guess would say for people to research about lectins and plant anti-nutrients, because it might be something that is a missing puzzle piece that might not be making them feel good. And they might think that they're being healthy, and not saying what I have to say is the holy grail, but I would encourage them to experiment with it, because a lot of these anti-nutrients can cause inflammation and micro tears in the lining of your gut and cause your levels of zonulin to increase, which can open the lining of the gut, which can lead to leaky gut and all the other problems. And it might be something as dumb as tomatoes that you're eating all the time that have lectins in them. Like Tom Brady doesn't eat lectins. He doesn't eat any nightshades. He doesn't do tomatoes, just to give you a perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely like something that's under discussed, and
It's under
know,
discussed. And
doctors
even
are
he
not
has,
for it at all, or
yeah,
recommending any of this. And so many people that have issues with like oxalates and like kidney
mhm,
stones and
all of it,
all the kind of like pains in their
the
muscles that
phytic
can be.
acid.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's definitely something that people need to become more aware of. I think there's definitely starting to be a little bit more awareness, but yeah, it's a
Mhm.
huge kind of
Yeah, I
elephant in
mean,
the
it's a
room,
big premise even like of my health food company. Like I'm an organic lectin-free health food company. Like I have my protein shakes and the vitamins, but like that's where like the food side of things are starting to come in. Like we just launched an awesome granola, and I don't do any oats. Oats are inflammatory. They're full of phytic acid. Tiger nuts also have phytic acid, but if you bake them, it reduces it. Whereas oats, you can't bake or boil them out of it. Same with the lectins. You can't boil lectins out of oats. They're also a pseudograin, and they will shred the lining of your gut. um, anyway, so little things like that. But I would say for people to go down a rabbit hole with considering being lectin free, because gluten, like most people somewhat have heard of it. If I asked 10 people on the street, I don't think they'd be able to tell me what gluten is, but they'd be like, I've heard of it. Gluten is a type of lectin. Lectins are anti-nutrients, essentially the plant's defense mechanism, right? It makes sense.
right?
Plants defend
Yeah,
themselves. They don't have teeth to
absolutely.
bite you. They don't have feet to run away. They're chemists. They make
Yeah.
sunlight
They
and
want to
oxygen.
grow
It's
more
wild.
plants. They
They
want their
want to
seeds
grow
to
more
survive.
plants. They want to survive. So, they're chemists, but
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
yeah,
I would
absolutely. No,
encourage
I,
people to,
I, I think that's a great tip, and I hope that there'll be more conversations about that in the new year as well.
yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jamie, thank you so much. This has been
you're so
amazing. I
welcome.
hope this helps people kick off their new year with at
For
least,
sure.
one or two shifts in their health and wellness. And if people want to find you and work with you, and what's the best way to find you?
The best way to find me is just on Instagram, at Jamie Maitland, JamieMaitland. And you'll see my gym on there, and you'll see the Office Health. But if you want to check out any products, go to theofficehealth.com.
Awesome.
And I'm always here on the gram if you need me.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. It was great having you on the podcast, and looking forward to following you online as well.
Cool. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, take care.
You too.